Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 111 of DoubleDM podcast. I am, as always, your host, Emil, and I am here with the other host of DoubleDM, Niels.
Hi there.
Today, we are gonna be talking about danger, and especially how TTRPGs tend towards these dangerous situations we put our players in. Why do we do it? Do we need it? And how do we use that to our advantage? The knowledge that danger is gonna be everywhere. But first, our recaps, what happened in our weeks, and all of that good stuff. First, one big question, Niels. Did you drink a schnapps today?
No, I did not.
Why?
Am I supposed to?
What episode is this?
Oh, yeah. Not yet. Let's say it like that, not yet, but we're celebrating into the birthday of one of our friends, so I guess there will be some schnapps today, so I can get that going.
Okay, good.
Did you?
Because, yes, I did.
Perfect.
And it's not just noon. Because to those that are not in the know, that feel like, why are they drinking alcohol right now? Or why should they? This is episode 111, which is 111, which in Germany is often called a Schnapszahl. If that number ever comes up at every point, German alcoholics just say Schnapszahl and have to get a schnapps.
You're lucky if you only get one. We bought my father for his 44th birthday 44 little alcohol bottles.
But did he drink them all?
Not all, but way too many.
Oh, okay. Whew. Because I know it like this, right? Schnapszahls are normally the ones that are the three numbers, 3 digits. 111, 222, 333, and those 9 numbers exist. Those are the 9 numbers that are usually referred to as Schnapszahls. Obviously, you can also do 44, 33 if you want to, but that's not usually a Schnapszahl in the original definition, right? It's completely pointless anyway, but
yeah.
If, for example, you're playing a game or something and you get the number 111, it was usually done for bar games, I think, dice games or card games, and you get 111 points. Schnapszahl. Everyone has to drink 1 schnapps. You get 222, you have to drink 2. 333, you get 3. That's how I know it.
Okay. Yeah.
And even that is already like after 222, when you've had 1 and 2 schnapps already, like after that, it's a lot. No, know your limits, right? Drink water and don't just drink because someone says Schnapszahl. So yeah, drink responsibly. This is just a fun joke we say. And if everyone is fine, you drink. If not everyone's fine, you just don't drink.
Exactly.
And no one, and after 5 minutes, everyone has forgotten anyway.
Yeah.
But okay. Niels, how was your week?
I had a lovely week. I was at the Ren Fair, or at one Ren Fair here in Berlin.
Oh, yeah?
A couple of friends and I dressed up to fit the vibe of this whole thing, and we got reduced entrance prices. So
because of dressing
because
up?
Because of us dressing up, because we added to the ambiance, you could say.
Yeah, I know that.
And it was just a lovely experience running around basically in our D&D costumes or D&D character costumes and then just having a great time, drinking some meat, drinking some water, drinking some beer, drinking whatever the fuck, right? Eating some lovely stuff there and just enjoying the atmosphere itself. It was a lovely, lovely time. And yeah, that's basically it for non-TTRPG stuff that I did.
I mean, you can also talk about TTRPG stuff that you did if you want to.
Yeah, sure. We had a session on Tuesday, which was basically just one big combat session.
As sometimes it goes, yeah.
As sometimes it goes, because we were 6 players against, I think, 9 or 10 entities. So one round it took some time. Let's just say it took some time. And it was really draining. It was a lot of fun, because everyone described everything just amazingly, how we wanted to do stuff, what we did, and how we worked together. Everyone played their character as they would have, or as the character would have acted in that situation, not necessarily what would have been objectively the best thing to do here. But after 3.5 hours of just combat and dice rolling, but it was hell of a lot of fun.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, basically we were level 6 and fighting against a level 20 wizard and his minions. And we did win, in fact. I don't know how exactly, but we did.
It's fun because a level 20 wizard would just cast Finger of Death or Power Word Kill even and say, fuck you.
Yeah.
I mean, every 20 level spellcaster has spells that can just one-shot everything because that's what they're designed to do at level 20. They're supposed to be overpowered kill machines. And that's okay. So yeah, I don't know how you won that, but
Yeah,
probably
me neither, but
it seems that you did, so that's good.
Yeah, so our characters are all alive, but it was fucking close.
I mean, did the spellcaster cast any real high level spells on you guys, and you just had to save saving throws and lucked out, or
we had a level 8 spell cast against us. I have forgotten the name. That just basically darkness, but with continuous psychic damage and a huge radius.
Is it something like Maddening Darkness?
Yeah, Maddening Darkness could be.
I think it's a spell from Xenothar's Guide.
Yeah, Maddening Darkness could very well be.
Wait, I'm gonna search that up real quick. Magical darkness spreads from a point you choose within range to fill a 60-foot radius sphere until the spell ends. The darkness spreads around corners. The creature with dark vision can't see through the darkness. Shrieks, gibbering, and mad laughter can be heard within the sphere. When a creature starts to turn in the sphere, it must make a wisdom saving throw, taking 8d8 psychic damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one.
We got that.
Warlock spell and wizard spell.
Then I guess it was a warlock. I think it was a warlock.
Warlock only has 3 spells at that level, right? So
yeah. Anyways, in my first round, I dispelled that. So I rolled really lucky with my dispel magic. So that didn't tick for very long. And the second big spell was, I think, a 9th level spell that does 4d12 damage on a melee spell attack, and if it crits, it deals another 8d12.
I have no idea what spell that is.
Yeah, I've forgotten that as well, but that were the spells that were cast at us that I can remember, and then possibly some minor things or minor spells that I've forgotten.
Yeah, but if a 20th level spellcaster uses a 3rd level spell, no, it doesn't feel like special. Yeah,
exactly.
Even if the spell is cast at a higher level, it's still a fireball. Okay,
yep.
yeah.
But that basically were the big spells that were cast at us. And yeah, my character nearly died. 1 damage more, and my character would have been insta-dead.
Oh.
That was fucking close.
Okay.
Another character nearly died by 3 points.
Also an insta-death?
Yes. So it was really fucking close overall.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, nice.
But yeah, our barbarian still had 20 HP left at the end of the fight.
Oh, all the HP you need.
Yeah, I mean, technically 1 is all the HP you need because you're not down. But anyways, and I just searched up the spell that the other 9th level spell, it was Blade of Disaster.
Blade of Disaster. Can we talk about the amount of edge Lord someone had to have had at the Wizards of the Coast office to name that spell? Blade of Disaster. I mean, come on.
I just saw another one. Storm of Vengeance is also in that realm. And then there's just the spell Weird.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just called Weird.
There's like, I'm just like, there's a spell like Fireball, which, okay, that sounds fucking cool. It is descriptive in its own right, and it's a fireball. Like, what more do you want? And there's Blade of Disaster. I mean, imagine standing against your BBEG, and they say, and now, with my Blade of Disaster, I will ravage your body and destroy the device of power to end this world. And you're like, wow, okay, yes, cut it down. You already did hurt me with all of the edge you had on you.
You don't need the spell anymore. I'm already dead.
It's so weird. Blade of Disaster.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if you have an edgelord fantasy, that spell is perfect, but it feels weird when just hearing the name. Like, imagine, with the D&D movie now out, imagine going to the cinema and one of the villains just said, Blade of Disaster spell, and you're like,
cool.
Couldn't have come up with a better name, you, right? You really went there, right? It's so good that they don't say the name of the spells in the movie.
Yeah.
Because what you often have with groups at your tables is that they, right, if they cast Fireball, they go, Fireball! And you're like, could have really made that cool, but you made it cringe as fuck.
Yeah.
That's all I will say about that. Oh, no. But I'm gonna make myself so many enemies. I love it.
Yeah, but anyways, that has been my week.
Okay.
Anything for you?
No, not really. Nothing. No TTRPG sessions this week because of unfortunate cancellations. One of them, after session was supposed to start.
Oh, cool.
Which I hate the most.
Yeah, this is,
If you write me 5 minutes before the session, hey, I can't be there, sorry, something came up, I'm like, you couldn't have said it earlier, probably, so that's fine. But if the session has started, that means you should have been there. And if then something comes up, again, no big deal. But you weren't there for the first 15 minutes. And after I message you and say, hey, we're waiting, I want to play, you say, no, I'm not there. That's basically effective ghosting of your game master and your group. And that's something I hate. So I have to find out if I want to play with that group anymore, because that's not the first time it happened. And personally, I feel disrespected in my time.
Yeah,
and
understandably so.
I love the group. I love them as players. I love them as my friends. If this keeps happening, I just don't know if I want to even risk it happening again.
Yeah.
No harsh feelings against the person that canceled. They forgot. It happens. But it happened 6 times now already in this group. That is a pattern. That is a clear-cut pattern that it will happen a 7th time, an 8th time. Why should I bear that? I don't. So that's my Tuesday group. So the other one, the today one, also got canceled because our GM has to work or has to prepare work and doesn't have the time to prepare for us. Sad, but can't do anything about it. And then on Saturday, hopefully, I really hope I get to play at least once this week. I get to play the Dishonored TTRPG.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I have a few small scenes planned. One very akin to the first mission from the first game, escaping a cold, rich prison. Then a little bit of a bar scene, talks, right? Give my players time to roleplay. And then probably some infiltration of some big political or high-value targets building. And I don't know, assassinating, stealing, all that type of stuff that is good for that makes the Dishonored series so interesting. And the game as well. The game sounds interesting and I want to play it, and I hopefully get to play on Saturday.
Yeah, I want to hear about it if you do.
I hope I do.
I love that game, or at least the video game. I haven't played the TTRPG yet, but I want to hear how well it works as a TTRPG.
I heard it works great as a TTRPG. It's a Forged in the Dark game, so that's good. I think that fits really well. Yeah, I will just have to play and find out. Play around and find out. The new fuck around and find out. The more friendly version of it. Anyway, that is basically all I have to say for this week. And I think you're done as well.
Hell yeah.
So we should just jump into our episode on danger and how to interact with danger. Hey listener, how are you enjoying the show so far? Tell us about it in whatever way you see fit. Go to our social media pages and add us or DM us about your favorite episode of the show. We would love to hear from you on what impact our show might have had on your home games. Or you could review us on your podcast app of choice and leave us a nice message with a 5-star review. And if you want to go above and beyond, bring a friend into the fold. Tell them about our show and refer us to them so they can get a piece of the pie as well. Thank you for listening to DoubleDM and joining us on this incredible journey. I don't know about you, Niels, but most of the time my players seem to fall into some dangerous situation that they somehow need to best. Right? Every combat is exactly that. A trap is exactly that. Every dungeon even is a situation where players are suddenly in that they need to get out of or go further in. But every situation is attached to danger. Even political discussions or tense talks or really any social interactions can more or less lead to danger or are dangerous in itself.
Yeah.
Because of maybe the players get thrown into prison if they say something else. Maybe the other party attacks them if the players don't say the right things. And maybe they lose some kind of opportunity that they were trying to get through that discussion.
Exactly.
So why is it that we as TTRPG people seem to love danger so much?
Well, the obvious thing is because it's interesting. Danger raises the stakes in general.
I mean, I wouldn't say that danger raises the stakes. Obviously, that's the thing that happens, but that's not the reason why we love danger. Or?
I mean, intense situations through danger are just way more enjoyable than non-intense situations.
Yeah, but the question is, I also wouldn't say that they are more enjoyable. They are just enjoyable, right? I also enjoy set moments where there is no danger attached, or at least no feelable or perceivable danger attached, right? A short shopping trip, a roleplay moment in a tavern, or wherever. But still, whenever the players seem to engage with something that is not necessarily them itself, but rather engage with plot, important NPCs, enemies, stuff like that, right? Environments. We always fall into some kind of direction that goes towards danger and risk and suspense even. And the question is just, why is that? Yeah, it's fun, but why is it fun?
I think it gives your characters a moment to shine, gives them opportunities to do the things that they set out to do. Whatever system you are playing, if you are playing a crazy cool hero in a modern world, or a adventurer in a medieval fantasy setting, or an upcoming musician, or whatever, just facing some sort of danger gives you the ability to do the things that you set out to do. Usually through some way, shape, or form, just through different means and different outcomes, but all just tackling the danger and being the character that you wanted to play.
Can you elaborate on that?
For example, if you're playing let's go in a fantasy medieval setting, and you are playing some sort of fightery type person that wants to protect the people.
Yeah.
And then there is some sort of invasion or incursion of some sort, and you can then protect the village just by fighting these evil things. This is just facing the danger to get the things you wanted your character to get. Or it uses the system to let the character be the character that they wanted to be. And I think that's why danger in any way, shape, or form is somewhat important to the game itself.
Yeah, especially to the game itself, right? Because, again, when you look at the most TTRPGs, there is a section that is how to play this game, right? How to engage with these rules that you are currently presented with. And in that section, or along that section, it often says when to call for dice rolls. And it often says something along the lines of, when the outcome is uncertain, roll the dice. And this uncertainty somewhat is the first step into the direction of danger, risk, suspense, right? It's not necessarily quite there yet, but we can combine it with that, because the danger itself means that the situation you're in, if it's dangerous, at least for me, in the sense of TTRPGs, means the outcome of the situation is completely uncertain. And there might be just one or many roles attached to it that I have to succeed, or that we have to succeed to avert that danger. Or to work with the risks that are in this location or in this situation. But I need to roll dice for that. And I think people know from previous episodes that while I do enjoy a lot of roleplay, I think that if we try to separate roleplay from dice rolling, that's bad. I enjoy both parts of the game, because dice rolling means I get to engage with the rules of a game that I am playing. And that means that I get to do something that is more or less, don't take this the wrong way because it's loaded, actually meaningful. Right? Roleplay is also actually meaningful, and it can lead to certain outcomes, but also engaging with the game gives me some kind of certainty that it does. Because when the game says, you have rolled this number, you succeed, I have a certainty that I've done something impactful.
Yeah. And I think especially in these situations, the outcome is felt rather quickly and more direct. But in a role-playing situation, it may take some in-game time to show the effect.
Yeah, I mean, the outcome can also be delayed when you roll the dice. But I think just when you roll the dice, you have some mechanical confirmation for you as a player, right?
Exactly.
Because we're not just talking about the character's perspective. The player also obviously has perspective. For example, I am a player that, or I want to be a player that whenever I am seeing basically an obvious hint to pressing this big red blinking button will lead to more risk and danger. If my character would maybe do it, I want to press the button.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Because that's fun. And exactly the question is why? Because, I mean, I get to do something cool. I press the red button, danger or risk or suspense changes, it arrives, more or less. I press the red button and 1,000 different drones come out of the walls and start attacking us. Okay, fuck, we need to do something about this. We need to get out of here. We need to fight. We need to do this, this, and this. And then I get to do cool stuff. Then I get to do cool roleplay with my friends about, oh fuck, there's 1,000 drones in here. We need to get the fuck out. How do we do this? Let's come up with a plan quickly while we're being shot at by these drones. And also, okay, cool, boys, I have this grenade. What if we try to lure them all to the same place and then bang the grenade?
Yeah.
And then I throw the grenade and I roll good on the grenade and the grenade hits a lot of them and gives us an opening to escape. That's a mechanical success. That's a mechanical certainty that I worked with the danger and risk involved and did something fucking cool. And these are these two sides of roleplay and mechanics, but both of them only work because of the danger that I summoned.
Exactly. And regarding the danger and risk that you just mentioned, I think that the two terms should be a bit more separate and not as interchangeable in general. Something being dangerous or there is danger somewhere is more of a overarching feeling or situation, and risk is more a bit more nuanced and on a smaller scale and regarding a certain action that you take or things that you say.
I think regarding a certain action that you take is a good way to say it.
Because the world can be dangerous as shit, but as long as you don't engage in a risky situation that exposes you to that danger, the world isn't dangerous.
Yeah, but I think, right, risk doesn't have to be smaller than danger because, right, you enter an ancient temple and there's a risky situation. You're in the final room of this dungeon, more or less, and there's a risky situation and you take the risk and fail. And through your failure, you do something that unleashes a very big danger.
Yeah.
The risk is in that situation. And the danger is basically that what follows.
Exactly.
Right? And that's how they are connected. They're not the same, but they are connected because risk comes before danger.
Exactly. Risk exposes you to the danger in some way.
Yeah.
In a social situation, it might lead to, if you take the risk and go into that discussion in the throne room and you say something bad, you get thrown in jail or you will be outcast or whatever. In a combat, you will die or whatever else there is, whatever danger there is present, whatever the stakes are. And taking the risk just exposes you to that.
Yeah.
And therefore, again, raising the stakes in the situation because now you are invested as a character and as a player.
Yeah.
Because exposing something to danger, being it yourself, the world, some other NPC or whatever, just invests everyone at the table. Because now you have a grasp on what is going to happen to that certain thing that you were just exposed to danger. And therefore know if you want to avoid it or at what cost you want to avoid it.
Yeah, to combine that with something that we said a few minutes ago, right? The dice rolls are also why we are there at the table to play the game, right? We're not just there to improv theater. We're there to play a game. We're there to roll some dice or use some other resolution mechanic that there is.
Exactly.
You could also play tic-tac-toe or something. In those situations, in risky situations, in situations that lead to danger, you are more invested in your dice rolls. I mean, we've all had dice rolls where we were like, okay, this is very risky, but if I do it, it's going to be the heck of an aim. It's going to be the best thing I could have done. It's amazing, right? The feeling of this dice roll is very risky, but I just need it to work. And you roll the dice, and wherever it falls, you're invested in its result. Right? The act of rolling that dice, the act of engaging with even the most simple resolution mechanic becomes a moment of stillness, more or less, right? Where every heartbeat stops, where everyone is just invested on the fucking number on a plastic math rock.
Yeah, this situation is just amazing.
But you only get that through having the situation you're in be risky and may lead to a lot of danger if your die comes up on the wrong number.
Yeah, and I think especially if the more dangerous the overarching situation is, the more invested you are into this specific dice roll. What I do for my games is in these situations where everything depends basically on this single dice roll now, after whatever else you did led to this moment.
Yeah.
I like to tell them what modifiers apply and what number needs to show up on the dice.
Yeah.
And then everyone just stands up at the table and watches the die fall.
I mean, one of the fun things about D&D is, right, that you're supposed to set the DC beforehand, so you could do that for every roll. Tell your players the DC or what they have to roll before every dice roll, because why not? It might lead to that every single dice roll therefore becomes a point of more investment, because out of game, the players know the exact stakes of the dice roll. You need a 25, you need to beat a 25. You have a +4 modifier, so you would have to roll a 21 or higher. So the only way you can succeed is by a natural 20. Or you need a 15. You have a modifier of 10. So you just need to roll a 5 or higher. And then it doesn't roll a 5 or higher. And they're like, fuck, miss. I missed. Shit. Instead of, just a 4, it's a 14. Is that enough? They are not questioning the dice that they have, even though it might have been enough with a 4 + 10, right? But they know that it was fucking close.
Yeah.
Like, let that sink in. I'm not saying that you have to do it or should do it. I'm just saying that at least I do it sometimes. I like to tell my players the DC for their dice rolls, not just in tense situations, not just in important situations, but sometimes just, okay, you need this, just roll. Because why not? I'm not doing it for every roll most of the time, because I just forget that I can tell them the number that I'm thinking of. But because also when we start rolling a lot, it also becomes a little bit tedious to always say, okay, you need this number, you need this number, you need this number. But sometimes if I remember it, especially for example for insight checks or something, I'm gonna say, yeah, you need something along the lines of this. I'm not necessarily gonna say the exact number or something, but right, even with insight checks, I often give them some information anyway. But you are allowed to say the DC to your players.
Oh yeah,
and I think that doing so makes even less stakes attached dice rolls more fun.
But I think you have to be a bit careful with the amount of dice rolls you tell the DC, at least in my experience, because the more you say it, the less invested they become in terms or in regards to that.
I mean, that's if you want to have that moment where this all depends on this one dice roll. I need to roll high, and you tell the player, yeah, you actually need to roll an 18, 19, or 20 to actually succeed. Right? If you want that moment where then everyone stands up and looks at the die, then yeah, you cannot tell them too often, because then it will dilute that. But I think that still doing it for more than just that single dice roll, because that dice roll is, at least from the game's perspective, nothing more special than all the other dice rolls, because it has no special things attached. Actually, it goes after the same rules of every other die roll. You can tell for more, right? I'm not saying, again, especially also in combat, right? When you roll in combat, when you make 3 different attacks, you need to roll 3 times. You don't need to say the AC of the monster, or at least I don't, for example. I don't tell the AC. They have to find that out on their own. I like to do it for charm effects, or for generally magical effects. I like to do it for them, because, okay, you get hit by this magic. This is what you need to roll. If you roll below that, you're charmed. Or they can read your surface thoughts, or they can read your mind, or they can do this and this and this. And because, especially with magic, magic is kind of a weird danger for me. Yeah. Because in D&D, for example, you only get a saving throw against it. Except if you have counterspell, for example, or some special magic item that was given to you, which is 2 big ifs. You have no way of countering it except for a saving throw that you might not be good at. Yeah. And now we can discuss if that's something that's fun, because you don't have a lot of defenses against it, except if you get one of the big ifs, if someone has counterspell, if you have a special magic item against it, if you have a special class or race feature against it, or you just have to roll a saving throw. Yeah. And the saving throw, you get to do not necessarily once, but you only get to do it if I say you get to do it. Only if the magic actually comes. Can't do anything against it beforehand. And after you failed the saving throw, the only thing you can do is roll the saving throw again at the end of your turn or something. Yeah. As dumb as it sounds, can we agree that this is not necessarily the most fun?
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely.
I'm gonna say this. I like the saving throws themselves, because I like active defenses against something. But the saving throws are not necessarily actually active. They are still passive, because there needs to be a call for a saving throw against something.
Yeah, they are not. They're passive, reactively active, if you could say that. It's weird.
Yeah.
Because you have to actively roll something, but only if it called for.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
reaction to something.
Exactly. In principle, I like the idea of saving throws because they're the only thing that you in D&D can do to actually actively defend against something. For example, for a fireball, I think that the saving throw on Dex is fine.
Yeah.
Because it allows you to interact with the fireball in some way. And if you're good at it, you get less damage. If you're bad at it, you get more damage. But you have to take that. That is okay. But if it's a more subtle spell, like a charm effect or an enchantment effect, I find it a little bit weird because...
Yeah, and I think it's weird for both sides, actually.
Yeah.
Because if they succeed on the saving throw, nothing happens. And this just also feels meh, if you could say that.
Yeah.
You had the possibility that something amazing happened, or it just didn't happen.
Nothing happens, right?
Exactly. There's no gray area where something happens.
But that's the nature of D&D, right? In the rules, you also only have success and failure. Most of the people do implant a tiered success system and a tiered failure system, where if you roll something along the lines of the number, your success is either not very good or takes a long time, or you just barely not make it or something. That's not the case on the base rules of D&D.
Yeah.
The base rules say that you either succeed or not, period. And the same goes for the magic, right? You either succeed or you don't. But it's harder to implement a tiered success system here.
Yeah.
Way harder. And that's why when most people, I do it as well, I'm not gonna lie, implement that tiered success system, which also plays back to the center core of this episode about danger and risk, because when you roll the dice and you barely make it, you might still not necessarily avoid all risks or avoid all dangers, but you get what you set out to do.
Exactly.
But with magic, it's completely different because it's way harder to implement a tiered system because, okay, he throws a charm effect at you. Make a saving throw. Okay, you succeed. Cool, his magic just bounces off your head for this. He tries it again. Oh, you roll low. Yeah, now you're charmed. This feels, it feels fine because it's by the base rules of the game that we agreed to play.
Yeah.
But I just feel like there could be more. And this is not me asking for D&D to change something. It's me asking for a game with a different magic system where there is maybe a little bit more intricacy to the risks and dangers of magic being used against you or using magic against someone. So if you have an idea for what a magic system like that could look like, or know a system that has such a magic system, please write us on Twitter or to our email in the description below, because I would like to see that system in action.
Hell yeah.
But okay. Right?
But regarding dangers and risks involving magic without actually using the game mechanics, I think especially if you're entering higher, or if you're in your world have higher level magic users, that can change reality just on a whim, basically. Think about it a bit in a way. When they start casting a spell without stating their intentions first, it can lead to some weird looks, maybe even the guard being called on you, or something along those lines, because most people don't speak the language of magic users, or don't know which spell you are casting, just as you're saying verbal components for it. And just you casting basically a minor illusion that does nothing. Just, I create a cup in my hand that isn't really there. But if someone doesn't know what the fuck is going on in that moment, and they know you can cast high-level magic, and it might lead to them being disintegrated or something, that, again, basically means that the characters themselves provide the danger that they are themselves exposing to in some way. And I think this is one way that you can create danger basically on a meta level, but not really on a meta level.
Well, it's about danger and risk assessment, right?
Exactly.
Because that's something that you need to think about, especially as a player in a world where dragons, liches, beholders, and whatever else lives, right? Where there's magic, where there is gods that actually exist, right? For example, real world. Sure, you might have a religion, but you don't necessarily know if that belief is true. Anyway, right?
Yeah, difficult topic.
In your fantasy world, you say there is an actual god, they exist, they influence the world.
Yeah, you can drink tea with them if you would like.
Yeah, for example, right? It's your world. Do whatever the fuck you want. But when you're a player in someone's world or in a world, your character obviously would know that world and would do his risk and danger assessment based on that world's knowledge. So if you, for example, recent example from my Tyranny of Dragons game is my players know a location where they need to go to find something. They also know that that location is very close or even exactly matching the Hoard of a Dragon. Someone that has listened to episode 105 knows the name of this dragon, Arothathor. He has something in his hoard, at least the players suspect it to be there, that they need or that they want to investigate. Okay, cool. Now, they got the information. This dragon is one of the most fierce and dangerous hunters in the northern regions. He is dangerous, he is quick, and he is unseen. Stuff like that, right? And the players said, okay, we need to go there. In character, they said, fucking shit, that dragon is gonna fuck us up.
Yeah.
And that's the risk assessment that the character did. This dragon is fucking terrifying. Am I equipped to fight them? With the knowledge that I have as a character, right? It always blends together, character and player knowledge. And we cannot separate it entirely because you're still playing that character. But when your GM presents you with dangers and risks and talks about them that they are on the horizon, do the risk assessment as your character. For example, what my players often ask when we're talking about an enemy mage or something, right? Do we know what spells he can use? Do we know what magical capabilities he has? Because when the character that has magic knows a little bit about magic, they would know, okay, so this character is a powerful magic user. What can we do to stop that? And yeah, that's what you should do as a player, to let the character you're playing assess the risks that you're presented with based on their knowledge, because you do not live in a world where there's magic and dragons, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But your character does. And now that character has a completely different assessment of risk and danger than you. And you need to work with that. And if you understand what risks and dangers your character would take, I think that you can way better roleplay them in that world. Because this character might not be afraid of dragons, even though you as a person obviously would be of a 20-meter long fire-spitting lizard in the sky. That character might have seen so many dragons before that he's not afraid of them anymore. Or he knows that you can take them down with certain tactics because he has trained to take them down as a dragon killer or something.
Yeah, and I think the risk assessment part is just a way for your players to engage with the danger, but not nullify it, reduce it, but still engaging with it in a meaningful way without them completely exposing them to it.
Yeah.
If you know that what this dragon or this magic user or whatever is capable of, and prepare for that confrontation in a certain way, you not nullify the danger, but you kind of diminish it.
Yeah, the danger is still there. The dragon is still dangerous, but you know that he breathes cold damage or that he breathes ice air. So you prepare and stack up on items that give you cold resistance.
Exactly. And for the characters themselves, diminishes that danger in that situation while still being a meaningful engagement with this danger as an overarching thing. Because they still know if the dragon kills them all there, he will ravage over the world or whatever, right? But for the players, the combat itself might not be as dangerous as it used to be because they know what this dragon can do. And therefore they interacted with the danger in a meaningful way without exposing them fully to that danger.
Yeah. You said 3 things that I want to touch on in that sentence. 2 of them were explicitly stated, and one of them was a little bit more implied, but that I also want to talk about, because that it's a discussion that currently goes on in the TTRPG sphere, and I'm going to keep that for the end. But first of all, I'm going to talk about the 2 things that you said. You talked about that if you show your players the risks and the dangers, and they know of the risks and dangers, they can engage with them in a meaningful way, right? And that's exactly what we want. Or at least I, as a GM, want that. If I show my players, this is a dangerous foe, this is what this foe can do, and this is what this foe will do if you do not intervene. For example, a dragon is attacking a village. What do you do? If you don't do anything and run away, which is something you can do, it will burn down the village. Do you want that? No. Okay, you see that the dragon is flying in the air, spitting fire down on the road and the village. What do you do? And you said meaningful way, an engagement in a meaningful way. And I like that, because how do we make the engagement meaningful? How do we, as a GM, help the players in making the actions that they are doing, making them meaningful? And how, as a player, can we make sure that we take meaningful actions?
Yeah, I think as a GM, the biggest thing that you have to do in this situation to enable your players to engage in that way is to give them all the information they need, to just give out the information. If they see a dragon, for example, in D&D, tell them what type of dragon it is, what type of color this dragon is, so they can better prepare or whatever, right?
Yeah, I would suggest the word opportunities.
Yeah.
Again, do not think about this in the loaded way of, for example, an opportunity attack or something, right? It's not that the dragon suddenly swoops by and gives the players a round of attacks. That's not what I mean. I mean that you give them an opportunity to work with. You tell the players the color of the scales. That means that the players now have information that they can act upon. They have an opportunity to act with that, even though it's just a simple information. You can also obviously make it a little bit more obvious. Like the dragon starts perching down on one of the bigger barns and looking at the village, basically maybe taunting, maybe waiting for something. That's a more obvious opportunity of the players go there and maybe talk to it or start fighting it then and there, bind it to that place, whatever, right? That's a more obvious opportunity. But you give your players an opportunity so they can act. Because if I would play this ancient red dragon that is burning down the village to its entirety how it wants to be played, it would fly over the village at like a range of 120 feet above and just rain fire down onto the buildings and never come down, never do anything. Just burn it to the ground, if that's its primary objectives, and then fly away again. 120 feet is a distance where only a bigger bow, a long bow, can hit, or very few magic spells can actually still hit.
Yeah, and I think what you just said is a perfect way, just exposing the danger that you presented to danger from the players themselves.
Yeah, to an opportunity from the players. I wouldn't necessarily say danger from the players, because it doesn't have to be that there's an actual entity that is exposing itself to danger from the characters, right? It could also be, for example, a natural disaster that is happening. That is not exposed to danger, in my opinion.
Yeah, obviously it's nuanced by the type of danger that you wanted to present to your players. But if the danger is able to be exposed to them, some sort of action from the party, let that happen and do that, because that enables your players to interact with the danger itself. And what things that you can do as a player in that regard is listen to your DM and get all the information that you can.
One of the things is that one thing that you can do is not just listen for it, but specifically, again, as I said, give your players opportunities, right? As a GM, as a player, ask for an opportunity. This is a conversation, especially before it, for example, comes to combat with a dragon. It's a conversation, because the GM says, okay, there's a dragon approaching. It's a red dragon. Cool. Okay, the players know, okay, it's a red dragon. It spies fire. It has immunity to fire damage, blah, 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 blah. And then one of them goes, okay, how high is it flying? How high up is it flying? Is it like on 120 feet at its maximum range, or is it flying very low to the ground? That's you asking for an opportunity. That's you asking for more information so you can act. And one of the fun things is that I, for example, as a DM too, I didn't think about how high this dragon would necessarily fly up. I just thought about this dragon would attack here now. And player asked that question. I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? Like, I'm not necessarily saying they will always get to decide how high this dragon is flying up. But if I didn't specify it, then it's not important to what I want to do with the situation, right? If it would be important, I would have specified this dragon is flying high up in the air, raining fire down on the village. But if I don't say that, my players don't have that information and can ask for it. And when they do, I realize, okay, they want to have an opportunity for something. What would work best at the same time for this dragon and for the players? And for example, then I say it's flying fairly high up, because obviously it doesn't want to expose itself to melee attacks. But it is close enough to the ground that you might get most of your spells or most of your ranged attacks in.
Yeah, because, for example, for a dragon, the town archers that are just picked up a bow aren't really a danger for it, even if it's flying a little lower. But a trained professional archer, in that instance, might actually hurt it. But the dragon didn't think about that, because the village didn't or doesn't have any. But the party has. And therefore, it exposed itself to danger from the party just because it wasn't necessary before.
Yeah, right. If the dragon realizes that there is a ranger that can shoot him from the distance that he's currently flying at, he will react. The reaction can be shown in a lot of different ways. He might fly higher out of the range of the archer or target the archer first so he can continue what he wanted to do. And this is this playing together with danger and opportunities presented and this conversation of what do you want to do? What can I as a GM make sure that you get that action that you want to do? Or how can I prevent it because my monster wouldn't let this happen without actually being without it being a one-sided conversation? Like if you have some encounter planned, give your players the important information for that encounter. Show them the danger, tell them the risks. Give them the basic cornerstone information. This dragon is flying. It is moving at fast speed. It is a red dragon. All of these cornerstones. But if for your encounter that you planned, the height of flight is not important, you don't need to specify it at the beginning. Because this gives you an opportunity to let your players ask you and see what your players' plan is. Because if they ask, how high is it flying? And you say, okay, what do you want to do? Well, I want to maybe stop it in its track. I want it to notice me. Sure, it isn't flying high enough in the air that it wouldn't notice you. So what do? Boom. You gave them an opportunity, or as a player, you asked for an opportunity and you got it. Now work with it. It's going to be dangerous. There's going to be risks involved. The stakes have been raised as you are now taking that meaningful action that might do something that changes everything. But now do it.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you just mentioned changes everything, because I wanted to talk a bit more about danger as a world-building method, you could say. Because danger is not just a way for you to raise the stakes in a certain situation or to create tense moments in a session or to create an awesome fight. But it's also a possibility for you to create your world and give it reason why the world is the way it is.
I mean, we've talked a lot about that danger is kind of important, or risks are kind of important to the nature of TTRPGs. Because in these situations, player characters can actually thrive. I think that's really the reason why we like it so much. They can thrive. It's a situation where player characters are needed. It cannot be solved by NPCs or commoners. You need the player characters to do the thing that they want to do, whatever that may be, but they need to have an impact. And this is the moment where they can, or this is the place where they can.
Yeah, when you use danger as a world-building method for your world, it is a way for you to evolve the world around the danger. It is because TTRPGs are basically around change, because if the players don't do anything, if they don't have an impact, the BBEG just gets what they want, period. And therefore, the danger changes the world in some way. And this happened in the past of the world, as we said in our world history episode.
Yeah.
It's just a way for you to create history and therefore create the things around that history, or create completely different continents or whatever, just because of one little piece of danger, you could say. If there is suddenly a volcano sprouting, there might be islands forming in a couple of decades or millennia.
Yeah, millennia is a better word.
Millennia, yeah, but magic. I don't know. So it might just be a couple of days.
But that's the thing, right? It's a good world building tool. Even right, you don't have to necessarily use danger to create history or locations even. You can. But what I like to use danger for is, this is kind of where this episode sprung from, right? We had a discussion, or we had a chat about how it seems that danger follows the players somewhat, right? Wherever the players go, there's danger. So the danger is always where they are. But that's not the actual reason. The world is everywhere dangerous.
Exactly.
Right? Not every nook and cranny is dangerous, obviously. Generally speaking, when I look at a map of my homebrew world, for example, wherever my players decide to go, there's a problem, there's a danger, there's risks, there's stakes, there's divisiveness. And this is an advice I got from the Witcher TTRPG from R. Tell Saurian Games. because in their GM section, they wrote that when you let your players run around the world, wherever they go in that game, they have in the GM section written for every location that you can get your players to some kind of problems, some divisiveness that can range from here's a rebellion going on, here's an actual war, or there's a political intrigue. All of these things are divisiveness, and that calls for heroes. That calls for player characters.
Exactly. Danger is a way to motivate the things, the players, the characters, the heroes. And
it's not that the characters follow the danger or that the danger follows the characters. It is that the characters are somewhere on the world map. They can only be in one location. And since at every location there is danger, all of a sudden there is always danger with the player characters, where they can engage in meaningful ways to change something on small or big scale.
Yeah, the only thing that follows is the spotlight that you where you shine your light on in the world, usually around the players. And therefore you see danger seemingly following the players or the other way around.
You implied one last thing. There's a current discussion going on in the TTRPG space.
As per usual.
Someone proposed the question at some point. I don't know who it was. I don't know when it came up. I'm sure that a lot of people have asked the question before, and it's an interesting question to ask, and it's an interesting question to think about, because, in most TTRPGs, what's the most obvious form of danger? Okay, what's the most dangerous situation what's the most easy situation of danger you can think of?
A combat situation?
Thank you. Combat.
Yeah.
Do we need combat in TTRPGs? Basis of the question. Because a lot of TTRPGs, I would say most TTRPGs include combat rules. Include rules for combat and fighting and killing.
Yeah.
I've played a few TTRPGs now that do not include combat. Wanderhome is one of the most prime examples for me, because it's a beautiful game.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It does not include combat, period. You cannot fight. It definitely doesn't need combat as a system. And I don't want to get into the philosophical discussion that is actually attached to it. Why do we need combat? But combat is the most normal form of danger, right? But even Wanderhome as a game includes dangers and risks, right? They're not so, I don't want to say easily seeable, because, right, the game itself has them as easily seeable, the dangers that you can encounter. But when we think about the wider range of TTRPGs, where a lot of them include combat, because I think everyone that listens to this episode and has played a TTRPG before has had one combat before. Because most TTRPGs, the big ones, all big TTRPGs basically include combat rules. Yeah. And you don't need it, for some games at least. For some other games, you might need it, because those games focus on danger that is done through harm. But danger doesn't have to come through harm.
Exactly. So, that's something, the perfect way that you just mentioned it. Danger isn't always physical harm. Yeah. It can take so many different shapes. Yeah. And therefore, the danger resolution can take any different shape that fits that danger itself. And therefore, you don't especially need combat, but for some forms of danger, you do.
So, right, as this episode, we've talked about danger, risks, and that sort of realm of things. We often used combat as examples, because that is the most easy. But let me say at the end of this, combat is only the easiest because it has been normalized by the medium we use. Yeah. It is not needed for every type of game. Play Wanderhome. Or for example, play Alice is Missing. It's not a tabletop role-playing game, it's a role-playing game. But still, you also do not need combat in that. There is no rules for combat. You only type on your phone. There is no rules attached to that. But even there is a possibility that your character encounters harm done to them. Yeah. You do not need harm to be the danger. It is the most obvious answer. And it's the one that most people will probably often use. What other forms of danger are there? Because maybe someone is looking for different forms of danger that they can use. Yeah. What form of consequences? Let's say that.
Yeah, just there are a multitude.
Name me some.
You could say there is physical and psychological harm. Yeah. If you are thrown into prison, for example, or an outcast. These are two types of harm, but different. Because one is a physical imprisonment, and the other is a form of isolation. And both are a way or some sort of danger that can happen to your character.
Some sort of consequence that can happen to your character that may lead to some kind of danger, even, once again, right?
Exactly.
One other thing is the loss of something for me, right? You lose your gear, you lose something. So what I just want to say, right, we can name a lot more. I want the people listening to this episode to think about danger and harm, not just done through actual physical harm, but also that there are other dangers that they can use. Because if you always threaten the players with physical harm or death, more or less, that can work. It works most of the time. But now threaten that they might lose something or someone. Threaten that they might get thrown out of the town if they do something stupid. That's an entirely different situation for them to deal with. It changes things up in your game and gives you new ways of meaningful interaction. And once again, the thing we want from TTRPGs is that meaningful interaction.
Exactly.
You want your players to interact with the game and story and narrative world, NPCs, whatever else you have, to interact with that in a meaningful way. And you get that in some way through danger, consequences, risks, and stuff like that. The most obvious is physical harm, but that's not the only one. Please don't stop at physical harm. As weird as that sounds.
That's a quote.
Think about different ways. And again, once again, the most important lesson for DoubleDM, take that extra second to think about other ways, about new things, about something interesting. And maybe that 1 second will yield the same result you could have had before the 1 second. But maybe it leads to a different, better result for you. And that's meaningful.
Exactly. So thanks everyone for listening. Hear you on the next one, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of DoubleDM. It appears you liked this one. What we had to say and our advice helped you. Why not show us how we helped you in a rating? Or even write a review detailing us how we helped. You can do this on the platform that you are listening on right now. It's just a few clicks, doesn't take long, and helps us out. It gets us out there and our advice into more ears of more people. Thanks again for listening and joining us on this amazing journey. Have a great day, and hear you on the next one. Bye-bye.